G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Maire-Claire Ross from Trustologie, based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Maire-Claire.
Thanks, Troy. Happy to be here.
Let's start with how we know each other. So we've both started recently using the pod and guest matchmaking platform called Matchmaker, and we reached out and thought you'd be a good guest to have on.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Well, I actually call what I do more of a practice. So I'm typically a speaker, a coach, and a facilitator or trainer, and author of a book as well that's just come out called Trusted to Thrive, How to Lead Connected and Accountable Teams. And I have run a business before, which I know we're going to get into, but in my practice, which is basically me running it, I work with leadership teams, SMEs, leaders to help them build trust, either through coaching or doing keynotes or workshops with teams.
And would be even more important in business these days, given the last 2 and a bit years with COVID, but even I think trust eroding over the years just in the general place of employment. So I'm guessing your book and services would be highly sought after.
Yeah, well, that's right. And, for a lot of leaders, particularly leaders who want to lead their teams well, they're quite anxious and uncertain as to how to go about it. And so, having the support really helps them make the right choices and do things more effectively.
Yeah. Maybe tell us how you started out and then finish off that bit with telling us more about the book.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll go back to my start running a business. So I actually started my career in market research, and I used to do research for big companies, loved it. Then I met my husband, and he was a video cameraman, and we actually co-founded a video production house together. And because of my corporate background, I loved corporate work. So I went and got lots of corporate contracts doing marketing videos and training videos. And his kind of genre was more live events and live TV. So we won some contracts to do live television broadcast for greyhound racing. And with that, we had to recruit staff, and I had a team of, actually we found that cameramen that were trained and had even been on television found it really hard to film greyhounds.
Right.
Because they go really fast. And so we found it better to train young kids, smart young kids, I have to say, and train them how to do it really, really well. Because if you're doing live television and a cameraman stuffs up the vision of a dog racing, everyone around the world sees it, because it's, even seen in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's really critical to get it right. So we train young kids, and I met some amazing kids, and I was a bit picky. I would choose kids that, they'd send me their resume when they're 16, 17, and they were unbelievable. Like, I thought, my gosh, I can't let this opportunity go past. I have to work with these kids. Really bright. And what was interesting was a lot of the kids that we took under our wing, so to speak, came from broken homes, disadvantaged homes, and they really needed a lot of support. And I suppose, being a mother, you just automatically look after people and nurture them and care for them. And we're probably going above and beyond what was necessarily, this is, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. But it just seemed normal. And then I was doing corporate work for companies and working with leadership teams and creating big induction training programs, and really shocked at how people were treated, because it was so different to how I was leading my team. And so essentially it's through that the work I do now has come to fruition, because I realized I had to build trust with my team members, because they needed it. They needed that safety.
Yep.
And they didn't really have good adult role models.
Yeah. And you found with their backgrounds, they typically had a better work ethic than those from more stable homes?
Well, that's an interesting one. There were some that were in stable homes that we had to, let go of because they weren't that good. But in particular, there was one kid, really bright, and he, his parents split up, and he was from a big family. And in his last year of school, his mum had remarried and then just moved from the state. So he was pretty much on his own and left to fend for himself.
Mm.
So it was good that we were able to give him regular income.
Yep.
Someone to talk to and help him. But, he needed the money because he was living off it.
Yep, on his own. Mm. And so in what year did you start the business, and how old were you then?
Oh gosh, that's giving a lot away. I started my business the same year you did. It was 1999.
Yep.
But I was still doing my career. So I was just doing kind of learning bookkeeping because my husband was really bad at that. So I kind of I had to teach myself.
So you're a master of MIAB now?
Well, no, I swapped to something else, which I love even better. But
Xero.
I won't say that. Yeah,
I love Xero too.
It's so much fun.
MIAB's a piece of shit. Don't start me on that.
Start
me on that wrong. I've done it a few times on this cast.
Yeah, it's true. Xero is magnificent. I still have fun with that because yes, doing invoices is very fun. So I started that, and then I came to it probably full time. I think it was 2001.
Yep.
Had a bit of a career traumatic event in market research and kind of dropped out, even though I love the industry. And then found that I was working for myself, which I really, really avoided. I was quite scared of being self-employed, particularly two of us. But then I loved it because, my husband was really great to be around and we worked really well together. And, it was just that autonomy. And then I got absolutely obsessed with how to run a business.
Yep.
Read every book I was constantly reading, doing courses. And I loved that, I could try new things and see more money come in. And, loved it when Google AdWords came out, and that kind of leveled the playing field and being able to, see the results from that.
Yep. Great. And then, excuse me, sorry. And your business, sorry, I'll start again. And your husband's still running that business. So how long ago did you pretty much jump out of the business and back into what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, this is a really hard thing. And I'm going to be honest here. So we were husband and wife running a business, and we did that very well for years. And then we had kids. He was away a lot, I have to say, when I think about it now, when our kids were young, because we would often, I don't know whether it was because he was a country boy, but we would always win jobs that were in the country. And then we won some big contracts. We won the Commonwealth Games contract, and he was following that all around Australia for the Queen's Baton Relay. And I was just almost like a dutiful wife, just feeling, and maybe because it was traumatized from my career and I kind of got kicked out and was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from a really bad culture where I'd come from, that I just didn't feel good about myself and was just so thankful to be doing something that I loved. And so it got to a stage where I just realized it wasn't working. And it was really hard to admit myself, because admitting to it kind of meant that, I didn't like what we were doing and what I'd created. And I was very passionate about running the business, but I realized I was doing it more to help my husband's career than my own.
Yep. And
I wasn't really satisfied. And I just remember he'd won some big jobs and he was out with staff. And we had this event where I had this full-timer editing with us in the office, and I was left with him on my own, and he kept complaining about, he was living in Geelong and we were in Melbourne, he kept complaining about the travel, even though he knew that was always going to be the case. So back then you kind of had to have someone in the office to edit, because you couldn't really edit anywhere else. We didn't have the technology back then. And anyway, he was getting really funny to be around. And I just remember, I just thought, I've got to get rid of him. I can't stand his energy in the office. He's not doing a very good job. So I thought, it's time to fire him. And I remember ringing my husband, who was off with other staff, and he was in the country. I said, I think you should come back. I think we should do this together. He's really angry. I can just feel his anger at me. And he'd been away for 2 weeks with all these excuses. Anyway, so I did as nicely as I could tell him that, you know, it's time to let him go, but his trial hadn't worked out. And he got really abusive and just yelling. And I got scared. I got scared he was going to hit me. And it was really horrible. And anyway, that night I went out with a group of small business friends out for dinner, and I ended up fainting, which I've never done before.
Yep.
And luckily the waitress caught me mid-fall. This is an expensive restaurant too. She caught me mid-fall, but I could have hit the stone. And I just realized, you know, it was kind of frightening to have, you know, we often hear of small business owners, you know, everyone complains about employers and how bad they are to staff, but sometimes, you know, it can be the reverse. We can have people that treat us really badly.
Yeah.
But, you know, with all that sort of going on and him doing other work and me trying to find staff to do work he no longer was doing, even though it was his work he did, I thought, why am I doing this? This isn't what I love. And it actually took me quite a process. And there was all this guilt because, you know, it was our main source of income. I was really running it. Without me, he'd struggle. And we had young kids. But then I realized it wasn't my passion. So I ended up escaping to America all the time to do all these business courses. And it was there, and I'm going to say something a bit weird. I ended up working with a shaman. And it was the work that I did with her that helped me to understand what it was that I really wanted to do. And, you know, it took me a few months to finally let go. But kind of in 2014-ish was very hard. I sort of let go of stuff. But, you know, I am still doing bits and pieces to help him, but now very much using what I've learned to help other companies and other leaders.
Yeah, great. Maybe tell us a bit about the book.
Yeah, well, Trusted to Thrive is really for leaders who want to create a really thriving environment for their team. And essentially, if you create a thriving culture, you can put your team anywhere under any conditions and they'll do really well. And, you know, this has particularly come about due to COVID, of course. You know, teams, you know, there's so much anxiety and there's so much change, but the reality is that's not going to change anytime soon. I mean, if you look at what's gone on this year, it's a constant. So we just need to get better at how we create an environment where leaders actually, you know, make people feel that they're trusted, because when we know that someone trusts us and they value us and they see us, then it really makes us relax and commit and really do things that we wouldn't do before, because we know we've got the support of our leader and our teammates.
Yes, we'll link through to it in the show notes, I think, and I'm adding it to my reading list right now, actually. Just back on the business, do you have any key numbers that illustrate the growth of the business over the 23 years?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so when I was really working on it, like every day to grow the business, you know, we were doubling every year.
Wow.
And then it kind of, you know, I ended up getting it 10 times higher than what it started off at over time. And that, you know, that was over a 6-year period. And the biggest thing for us, of course, was winning corporate contracts, big contracts, doing tenders. Which I was experienced at from being in the corporate world. And that was what I love to do. Well, actually, I don't love to do tenders. They're a lot of work, but I knew what to do.
Yeah, got it. And how many team members did you start out with, and where are you at now?
Yeah, so we started off, it was when my husband started it and then I joined, and then we quickly had to add some casuals, and then we had to grow our full-time staff as well. And then, you know, I had kids, 2 kids in that time. So that meant hiring people to replace some of the things that I could do as well. So we ended up with 5 full-timers. And, you know, we had quite a lot of casuals, to be honest. So they varied. There were some subcontractors, so about 5 to 6 casuals as well.
Okay.
And they were based in different locations. So I had to grow teams that I wasn't in the office with them. They were in regional Victoria. And so that took a lot of work because, building trust with them wasn't easy. And, we didn't have the systems we can have today with building teams. All that technology wasn't around 10, 15 years ago. So I had to learn on the ground how to actually, really make people feel safe and connected to us.
Yep. Right. And so about, including the casuals, about 9 full-time equivalents now?
Yeah,
Yep.
That's correct.
I think I asked, but I'm not sure if you answered. So you started in 1999. How old were you then?
27.
27. Wow. Yeah. I was 25. So yeah. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
You know what? I don't even know if I ever felt that way, to be honest. It always felt like it was always trying to win work and get more stuff. But I just remember driving to work one day and we kept winning work, and we'd won another big contract. And I realized I needed to hire more staff, and actually I had staff. I had a nanny and I thought, oh my gosh, things are actually, I don't have to worry about making an income. That fear, it was like money, we had money coming in. And it wasn't that fear of, am I going to be able to pay the bills next week? I think, once that started to go away and we were able to actually earn decent money and even save money, that was a feeling of success. I don't think I even celebrated.
And what does success look like to you now?
It's that same thing. It's just, actually it's more doing work you love with people you love the way you love. So I absolutely love the work that I do. Like, it is just absolute joy. I ran a workshop yesterday with some SME leaders, and it was just joyful. Like, I was obsessed when I was younger about learning how to run a business, and yeah, it was really cool. And I always loved what I was doing at that previous company, but this is more in alignment with my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more me, whereas I was probably doing more the work I was doing out of obligation because I was in a family business, and it's really hard to remove yourself from that. When I said to my husband I wanted to start my company, he saw that as me wanting to divorce him.
Right.
It took a few weeks to get him used to the idea, and then he's been fully supportive.
Yeah.
And it's all really good. But it's just, that's what it's like when you're running a family business.
Yeah, it would be tough. I couldn't imagine it. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Well, when it comes to marketing, it all depends on what you're doing. But one of the things, there are a couple of things that I've done over the years to market both businesses that have been effective, and that's writing a blog.
Yep.
And I know that's sort of a bit old-fashioned for some people, but it's, it works for me, and it always has. And I grew I had 10,000 readers a month with the other company blog that I did.
Yep.
I probably started it at a really good time. It was 2009, so I built a really strong following when it was all a bit different. And I feel that that's a really good idea, but also speaking.
Yep.
Doing talks is also really powerful and really good for your thought leadership and thinking about how you do things. It really grows you as a person.
And what about funding the first business, I guess? How did you fund it?
Well, back then, because we were television broadcast. So back then, we're talking early 2000s, we had to buy broadcast cameras. The one camera that we bought was $60,000.
Holy shit! Right.
Yeah, and so we were often getting equipment finance to fund those purchases.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, completely different now.
Yeah.
So much cheaper.
Probably use your iPhone first.
Even the edit suite, we had to get funding. That was $25,000, which seems expensive, but that was cheap at the time because they'd been $200,000.
Wow. Yeah.
Different time.
I guess this question is more relevant to your current business. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Well, yeah, well, I love what I do. And, you know, it's because I'm running a practice, you don't really need funding. If I were to do the video production company, I don't know, knowing what I know now, but no choice for my husband. He just loves that sort of work anyway.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, it was losing a contract. That was regular work every week that we'd had for 13 years.
Did you get that much notice before that was lost?
A couple of months.
Yep.
But I think also, you know, the reason why we lost it wasn't, you know, it was done by a procurement team. And, you know, we'd spent years building connections with people in the business who'd moved on and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, there were political reasons why we lost the contract. There was nothing to do with we were doing a bad job. If anything, we were bringing more innovation and stuff like that. And so it was actually heartbreaking when you actually really, really care about your client and the result they get, and then they choose someone that, you know, doesn't. That's really hard. And I don't think procurement corporate people understand that you build relationships with small business owners.
Yeah, no, I agree. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Myself. That's the biggest one. Like, you can learn all the skills in the world, but if your mindset's not right, then that causes lots of chaos. So I've probably done more work on myself as a human being to really change things. So done lots of mindset courses, lots of coaching. I've had lots of coaches, therapy, all those things. I even joined a CEO group when I was running the business, and that was really helpful as well, just to get other people's perspectives of what they were doing.
What's the name of that group?
It was the CEO, it still exists, the CEO Institute.
Okay.
Which is really good.
Yeah, no, I think your mindset is so important. If you don't get, I mean, you may have it right from day one and it may dip or change, but if you don't keep on top of that, that can really impact your, not just your business, obviously, but yourself.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I had our income, I remember our sales dipped 40% one year. And that was because I was in a court case with a family member. And that was so traumatic for me. I just, you know, it was really hard to keep building the business. But, you know, mindset, I was in a bad place.
Yep, that's right.
It impacts the money.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
It was really hard finding the right staff, that bit. And I think it's really hard when you employ staff that steal from you or do stuff that's not very nice. So that guy that I told you about that where I fainted, you know, he ended up ringing my husband and just bagging me to him. And that was hard because I'd been sitting in an office with him and having conversations and trying to be nice and all that stuff. And I had no idea he hated me so much. So and it actually, to be honest, it felt sexist. It felt like because I was a woman that I had all these issues, which he would never have said to a man. And in fact, I'm going to raise that question that issue because we're close to International Women's Day just passed.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues, now being a husband and wife, we'd go to meetings and the men would just answer all my questions and talk to my husband.
Yep.
And he would even say, Maire-Claire asked the question, or Maire-Claire is the one that needs to know that. And they'd ignore me and just look at him. And it was constant. And I even had that a couple of years ago, and it was a young guy that did it. And I went, what the hell? You know, if my generation doing it is bad enough, because we should know better. But, you know, young kids in their 20s and 30s, come on, get over it. Look a woman in the eye. It's not that hard.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It is getting better every year, but it's a glacial pace. There's still a lot of work to go on there, I think.
Mm.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Well, it is the autonomy and flexibility. So you can do what you want in the hours you want. And it gets obsessive. Like, I know that if I didn't have kids and I didn't have a husband, I would be working like 15 hours a day.
Yeah, me too.
It is so much fun. Oh, it's hard, but it's so rewarding. And just being able to, make connections with people. And I love networking and connecting with people and talking about business. I hate going to family events. And when you meet, this is going to sound terrible, but when you meet, family members and other people that have a corporate job, what do they want to talk about? Like, It's so boring. It's like, come on, let's talk business. let's talk about interesting stuff. Let's not talk about our kids and, things like that. Let's talk about how to grow a business. It's so much fun.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
You know what? I think it's to do with trusting myself. So when I actually started my business, Trustologie, a wise woman actually said to me, she goes, Maire-Claire, this is great. You're doing this business. I think it's in alignment with your purpose. But the biggest challenge you're going to have is you're going to have to trust yourself. And I didn't quite get that. And I thought over the years I was, but I realized even just a couple of months ago that really believing in myself and what I'm doing wasn't at the level it needed to be. I thought I was really good at positive self-talk, and then I actually realized there was this little story going on in my head all the time that I had to really work on. And, it's that really, as a small business owner as well, you kind of almost think like, people are doing you a favor when they're giving you a job sometimes.
Yeah.
And you should be thankful. But sometimes, we realize like we're giving service, we're giving value, and they should be bloody thankful of the work we're doing, because we usually put more effort into it than corporate workers. The only exception, I'll say, a tradesman who don't seem to put much effort, but it's just, I'm saying that because I'm building a house and you get some terrible self-employed people. But, generally, we really go really above and beyond.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
It's probably a number of habits, but the main one would be work-life balance, and that is making sure you're exercising, making sure you're eating well, taking breaks, looking after yourself, sleeping. Oh my gosh. And that's one good thing about a small business owner. You can have a nap if you need to in the afternoon, because I don't know about you, but like particularly when I was writing my book, sometimes I just couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 1 a.m, have an idea, be so excited, and just have to write. And I was a bit wrecked, so I'd have to have a bit of a nana nap. But you need that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the good thing about being self-employed, because you are passionate. Like, sometimes I have trouble sleeping because I'm so excited about what I'm doing the next day, and you have that freedom and flexibility, but you need to look after yourself, because it can be overwhelming and consuming. And in fact, last week I realized I'm probably working myself too hard, and I know I'm working myself too hard, and I have for quite some time now, and I need to give myself more actual days of doing nothing, like a full day of doing nothing, which I haven't done in 18 months.
It's a trap. I've got to put things in place. Like, I've got a chocolate Labrador Carlton supporter that needs to be exercised a lot, so we go bushwalking most days. He gets me out of the house and away from the computer, and hang out with my daughter, and plenty of social catch-ups. Otherwise, I could easily work 80 hours a week, because I love what I do. I used to work 100-hour weeks when I first started, late 90s, but not sustainable. It's not healthy. And so now, and I have to actually track my time as well to make sure that I'm not spending more than a bit over 40 hours a week, which is my plan.
Yeah.
Just on the nana nap, I don't really nap these days anymore, but have you ever heard of a NASA nap?
No.
The optimal time, NASA did all these studies in the 1950s of international long-haul pilots. ready for the space program. They wanted to know what was the optimal amount of time for an astronaut to nap, so they were cognitively, at their peak when they woke up. And it's 52 or 54 minutes. I can't remember which one.
Oh, really? I thought it was less than that.
Yeah, it's just before you go into REM, because as you know, if you wake up when you're in that REM state, you're almost feel a bit drunk, so incoherent. But so I used to have NASA naps, but not anymore. Not during the day. I'm getting too old.
Well, I tell you what I do. I listen to a podcast, a Hay House podcast, and they're 25 minutes. And there are a couple of them. I can generally fall asleep within 10 minutes, and 15 minutes, it's over and I'm awake.
Wow. Yeah.
So and that's all I need to revive me.
Yeah.
Any more than that, and I'm drowsy.
We're all different.
Yeah.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. growsmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing that I've learned, and this is through work that I've done over the years with clients as well, is, just finding people that really align to your values.
Yeah.
And, I used to employ people because they were good technically at what they did, but I realized that, it's that thing, would you have a beer with them? Not that I drink beer, but would you have a champagne with them?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. If you want to, you're going to, like that guy I had in the office that was just grumpy and horrible energy, like it just impacted my moods. And, I couldn't shift it. That was just how he was. So, which is fine. But, I'm a bright, energetic person. I need to be around bright, energetic people.
Yeah, it's a good point that I think a lot of people miss. Someone mentioned on the cast last year that they've got an airport rule, which is, I think they're in America, so there's a lot of interconnecting flights, but if you're stuck in an airport waiting for your next flight and you're stuck with this person for 4 or 5 hours, could you sit there and put up with having a conversation with them?
No.
So it's
that's a good one.
Similar to your champagne rule.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm working with a team and they all love what they do. Like the joy of the work that they do is what gets them out of bed. But there's one member that they're not gelling with. And when I had a discussion with him about what he loved and disliked about his work, there was a clear distinction between what he loved and them. Right. He was more about the actual processes, but they were about, really helping the customer.
Yep.
And you can just see where the lack of cultural alignment is and why he's not fitting in.
Well, that's the next question. What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Yeah, well, of course, my thing's trust, because, high trust cultures have 2.5 times the revenue generation of low trust cultures.
Wow. Okay.
And it really does involve leaders having the skills to build trust. And, there are lots of books on trust and they're all great. But there's one thing I don't like about them, and that is, you might have 13 behaviors that a leader has to follow. And so the onus is on the leader to be more trustworthy. Well, in my experience, it's not just the leader that has to be trustworthy. Employees have to as well. And so you really have to create an environment. Trust is two-way. Everyone's responsible. Relationships are a social contract. We're all responsible for it. So as a leader, we've actually got to train and model to our staff the behaviours that need to be done. And, if you've got people that are toxic or aren't working to standard, well, you need to be clear and you need to let them know, because otherwise it can just absolutely create so much chaos, like the guy that I was talking about.
Yep.
It was his responsibility to build trust with me, not just me. But we've got this culture in Australia that leaders, employers have to treat employees well and they're all bad and blah, blah, blah. But we don't have the discussion about employees, as I was saying before, that do the wrong thing. And that's what building a trusted culture is all about. Everyone is responsible, not just the leader, but the leader leads it. And the power is in the leader leading it the way that they want.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of a small business, is that you can create the culture that where you thrive.
Absolutely. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Well, I love exercising. So I love to run in the mornings. I listen to podcasts, business podcasts and my own stuff, and a few even spiritual ones as well, just to get a balance in what I'm learning.
Yep.
I always eat 3 meals a day, and I have coffee because coffee makes you smarter. I don't know if you've heard the research on that, but that's very important for everyone.
Coffee is a work tool for me.
Makes you smarter. Yeah, and I always take breaks. So I always have lunch. I might have another little walk. I always find that, I always like to, I always make sure I'm burning at least 500 calories a day.
Yep.
Or more, according to my watch. And I don't eat processed food. I find it really funny that people think cakes and lollies are foods and you have that as a snack. That's just terrible.
Not good for you.
No.
And sounds like the answer to this is a lot. And how much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
Oh my gosh, if I tried to calculate, it's probably getting close to 100 grand. It's thousands. I've spent thousands with people.
Yep.
In America, I've had 3 people in America I worked with, and I know one of them was at least 30. It's been a lot of money. But, business expense.
Yep. And you've had mentors or coaches?
Oh, yeah, lots of coaches. And a lot of not very good coaches, to be honest. I always found it really frustrating because I was running a B2B business that a lot of coaches were more B2C. It's a very different way of marketing your business when you're B2C, very different processes as well. So it was always hard finding B2B coaches, even systems and even personal development courses or professional development courses were hard for B2B.
And do you have a board of directors or advisors in either business?
No, I don't. So both my husband and I are obviously directors of both, but I actually feel very strongly about boards. So a few years ago, I did the Australian Institute Company Directors course, and I'm actually on their committee in Victoria for SME. And I had no idea just the kind of the responsibilities a director had, because I know it's just signing stuff the accountant told us to sign without fully understanding it. So
you can go to jail.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. So I actually recommend anyone does a director's course to fully understand what their responsibilities are. And you know what, I had I had a friend that was running a $13 million business, and he had some fraud in his company, lost $500,000. Then there were a couple of other issues. Anyway, and he ends up losing his whole business.
Wow.
And I said to him, you know what, a few years ago, this guy that we both knew recommended that we have advisory boards. And looking back, do you feel that you would have got a different result if you had one? And he went, yeah, I really regret not having one.
Yeah. Yep. I'm clearly a big advocate. You're one of the few we've had on that's exited a business operationally, at least. Any final advice there for the audience thinking about jumping out of their business or selling it?
Well, this is a tricky one. I kind of left it and I did some stupid things, but this is more, I don't think it's really that relevant for most people, but, I had a blog, 10,000 readers a month. And I just thought, oh no, I've changed topics. I'll just stop. And then I realized that it was kind of related. And so then I reconnected with people. And amazingly, I still have people following me that have been reading my stuff since 2010. But I lost, that audience that I collected took a lot of time. Your database is so important. So, sometimes, really appreciating your assets is important.
Right, Maire-Claire, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Probably just how much work there is and how much you have to learn. And losing, and I see this mistake, you're losing the mindset of being an employee. So we're quite, if you've worked in a corporate job or had a job, you kind of expect to be looked after. You're not going to have that. So you can't be precious about it. And lose the victim mentality as well. I was working with someone who has their own small business, and it's constant whinging and complaining. I don't want to hear it. It's you're working for yourself. Don't complain to me you're working on a public holiday.
Yeah.
Get over it.
That's it. Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Oh my gosh. This is going to sound so cliched, but probably The E-Myth.
Love that book.
Michael Gerber.
My favorite. Yep.
Yeah, and then I'm a big fan of Jim Collins's books.
Yeah, Built to Last, Good to Great. They're all excellent books. Yep.
Yeah.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I listen to Work Life by Adam Grant.
Mm-hmm.
So he brings research into running teams and organizations. And Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss, yep.
Yeah.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
This is a bit biased, but one tool that's really helped me, and I know it's quite expensive now for small business, but is marketing online software and having a CRM.
Yep.
So I started with HubSpot back in 2009, one of the first Australian companies to do so. And that's been fabulous, but I know it's a little bit out of the price point for other people, but having a CRM, really keeping your contacts that you meet in an orderly fashion, that data is so powerful.
Yep.
Having a email list is the most powerful thing you can have.
Definitely. Final and my favorite question, what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Don't be so hard on yourself. The more you believe in yourself and what you're doing and really love what you do, the more it will work out. But it can take time. You just got to be patient.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Maire-Claire. I think the audience got a lot of value out of what you shared with us. Really enjoyed our chat today. Congratulations to you and your husband on the growth over, what's that now, 13 years, 1 to around 9 full-time equivalents. And you're starting your second business, downsizing to just yourself, but doing stuff you're really passionate about and helping a lot of small businesses. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. And thanks for your work helping small businesses as well.
No worries. I love it.
Cool.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.